In this video, I'm going to be translating and explaining the techniques for the legendary dark chocolate mousse recipe by renowned French pastry chef and chocolatier Philippe Conticini, so you can enjoy it too. Hello, I'm Chef Zach Townsend with Dallas Chocolate Classes in Dallas, Texas. I started my career in chocolate many years ago in France, and I am also the French to English translator of 18 cookbooks published worldwide. For many years, I have worked with French chefs and their recipes and follow many of them on YouTube or TV. This is my new video series where I will introduce you to a well-known French chef and his or her chocolate recipe. I'll also walk you through the video of that recipe so that we can discuss together the tips, techniques, and ingredients, and I will also provide you a fully translated and tested version of the recipe. So Philippe Conticini has always been one of my favorite French pastry chefs and chocolatiers. I can remember times in France when I would watch old reruns of cooking shows, and Philippe would appear on those shows, and at the time he probably would have been in his 20s, so he's been around for quite a long time and well known since then. In 1994, he invented the concept of a dessert called the verrine, which is still very popular today. It can be found in pastry shops in France and the United States. He's also received Pastry Chef of the Year accolades as well as Michelin stars. In 2009, he co-founded Patisserie des Rêves, and I remember those pastry shops. They were beautiful pastry shops, and I really enjoyed visiting those. He now runs his Paris-based Maison Philippe Conticini, and he often does master classes online as well. He's also, as you can tell from the video, a very happy and gregarious person, so I've really always enjoyed that about his personality. This video is from his Facebook Live masterclass about his chocolate mousse recipe. It's one of my favorite chocolate mousses. I make it all the time, and I also teach it in my chocolate classes. If you want to see the video in its entirety without my interrupting it, I will put a link in the description, and of course I'll also put a link to my written, translated, and fully edited version of the recipe, so you can check it out there. Let's watch the video. So just to go over the ingredients really quickly, this is going to include a mixture of 2 dairy products, and that's going to be cream and low-fat milk, and I'll go over that here in just a second. There's also a mixture of 2 different chocolates. So this is going to include a mixture of both dark and milk chocolate, and this mousse is lightened with a meringue. So meringue obviously is going to include egg whites and sugar, and in this case, Chef Philippe recommends using a dark brown sugar. Now you could use white granulated sugar if you wanted to, but the dark brown sugar is certainly going to add a little bit more flavor and depth of flavor to the chocolate mousse. The chocolate that you see in the bowl here is Valrhona, and you can always tell Valrhona by the oval shape. And Valrhona is a couverture chocolate, which I've talked about in my other videos as well. Couverture chocolates have a high fat content to them. They are also expertly made, so they offer really well balanced flavors, acidity, bitterness, etc. So couvertures are really the recommendation for a really good chocolate mousse. So here Chef Philippe is talking about how he recognizes a good quality dark chocolate in the way that he recognizes a good quality black cup of coffee. So he's talking about the balance of acidity and bitterness, and that's what you should also look for in a really good quality dark chocolate as well. So they are talking here about the mixture of the chocolates, and they are recommending a 65% cacao dark chocolate, and then Chef Philippe recommends a couverture milk chocolate that is no less than 35 to 39% cacao. And he goes on to talk about the fact that that richness in a couverture milk chocolate is obviously going to add to the texture and richness of the mousse, and also how it will balance out the acidity in the mousse overall. Now he mentions a proportion of dark chocolate to milk chocolate here, and that is with the milk chocolate 15 to 20% of the total weight of the chocolate. Now mixing chocolates like this is very common for chocolatiers. I see it quite often. I do it a lot myself, and that balance is a lot of times just obviously depending on the recipe itself, but that is his recommendation here. So Chef Philippe is also making a recommendation when it comes to the amount of milk fat in the cream. He is suggesting a cream of somewhere between 33 and 35% milk fat. Now in Europe they do have creams of these varying percentages. In the US we have that as well, but our most common cream is the heavy whipping cream at 36% milk fat. So in my translated version, I did test at 36% milk fat because that's the most common product that you can find in most grocery stores, so that will work just fine in this case. One additional comment about the mixture of the cream with the low-fat milk is that one of the reasons that he's using a low-fat milk mixed with the cream is to cut the fat content and the dairy base. And first of all, chocolate mousses are very rich to begin with, so if you went with all cream in this instance, you would probably end up with a chocolate mousse that's a little bit too rich. Also, when you mix cream with chocolate, that is called a ganache, and ganaches are emulsions. So you have to achieve an emulsion with the mixture of the dairy and the chocolate. So that is going to be a balance of fat to water content. So if you go with a very high fat dairy base, such as all cream, and of course chocolate has a lot of fat too, then you might have a little bit of difficulty achieving that emulsion. So cutting that fat in the dairy with a little bit of low-fat milk is going to help with that. So the liquid is now being heated, and the recommended temperature here is 80 degrees Celsius. And Chef Philippe is explaining here that that temperature is for two reasons. Number one, it has to melt the chocolate completely because in this case the chocolate is left in a solid form. And number two, whenever this mixture is made and by the time the meringue is introduced, the temperature needs to have cooled down to around 30 degrees Celsius. So that's why you take the temperature up to 80 degrees Celsius. So the cream and milk mixture gets added all at once. Now you can add cream in portions to your chocolate if it's pre-melted, but here it gets added all at once. Chef Philippe is talking to Johnny now about making the emulsion, and he's recommending that you try to keep the whisk at a vertical position because it helps you get the emulsion a little bit better. And emulsion here is simply going to look smooth and creamy. So you need to make sure that this mixture, by the time you finish it, has a smooth and creamy texture to it. If for any reason it looks grainy, then it is split, or you have an emulsion that is separated, and that can be fixed by adding in a little bit of additional liquid if you need to until the mixture finally comes back to something smooth and creamy. So as you can see now, the mixture is very smooth and creamy, and the mixture continues to cool down, and they are now going to start preparing the meringue. Now you can't really see it in the video necessarily, but Johnny has started beating the egg whites in the background. This is where he's going to start developing the meringue. So the dark brown sugar actually gets added in all at once. It does not get added in gradually. And one of the reasons for that is Chef Philippe explains that it gives it time to develop micro bubbles in the meringue. Also, the speed that that meringue is developed on is going to be very important as well. So you're going to develop this on a lower speed on your electric mixer, not at a medium-high to high speed. And the reason for that is you will actually get smaller, even-sized bubbles if you develop the meringue at a lower speed, rather than if you did that on a higher speed, which would then develop larger bubbles in the meringue and make the meringue more unstable. So we want the meringue to be very silky, and so doing that at very low speeds, and those speeds can seem a little bit counterintuitive. I did give you my recommended speeds on an electric mixer in the translated version, and you'll see that that speed level does develop the meringue into something super silky and smooth. So at this point, they're talking a little bit more about the texture of the meringue. And there is a French term that I always like to introduce a French term in my videos, and a French pastry term. And there is a term called bec d'oiseau. And bec d'oiseau in French means bird's beak. So you want to develop a meringue where whenever you hold the beater vertical, there's a little bit of a turn down on the tip that looks like the tip of a bird's beak. So that's what they're looking at here. We can also see that Chef Philippe is taking some of that meringue and filling of it between his fingers, and he's talking here about how those micro bubbles, because of the fact that the meringue was whipped at a very low speed, but also because the dark brown sugar was introduced all at once, that you have a very silky meringue. And you can see that in the bowl as well, how very shiny and glossy that meringue looks. So now it's time to fold the meringue into the chocolate base, and just a reminder, the chocolate base has cooled down now and it should be close to 30 degrees Celsius. So what you're going to see here is that they're going to add just a little bit of the meringue into the base first and get that incorporated. Then it'll make the rest of the meringue easier to incorporate into the base. So you can see Chef Philippe there folding, and this folding gesture has the action where you are turning the bowl in the opposite direction that you are then rotating the spatula, and you're making the spatula into kind of a hook or a J shape as it goes around the bowl. Now the remaining meringue is added to the bowl, and you can see the texture again of the meringue, how silky it is. And also it's got kind of a tan color, and of course that's coming from the dark brown sugar. So a lot of people don't realize you can actually use dark brown sugar in meringues as well. So once again, we see Chef Philippe here going through that same gesture to rotate the bowl in the opposite direction that the spatula is moving, which is kind of in this J or hook gesture, and he's scooping all the way down to the bottom of the bowl and making sure that he brings up that chocolate mixture to get it fully incorporated. So keep folding until you don't see any streaks of meringue left, but always be sure that you don't overfold so that the mixture doesn't start to look deflated. So now they're just testing it for texture, and as you can see, Chef Philippe loves the texture and also the deep flavor offered by the chocolates plus the brown sugar. Chef Johnny is making a point here as well. He's going to be talking about whenever you get ready to put the mousse into your serving glasses that you do not want to use a piping bag, or if you do use a piping bag, make sure that you're very careful with that, because it's very easy to compress the chocolate mousse through the bag and therefore remove too much air from the mousse as well. So be careful with that. Usually I recommend that if you can, if you've got a bowl that you're dispensing this into where you don't need a pastry bag, then to just delicately pour it into that serving glass. So as you can see, Chef Johnny is now pouring the mousse into the glass, and that is the texture that you want of your mousse as soon as it's made. You want it to be in a pourable consistency, therefore you can put it easily into a verrine and have that mousse settle out. Now, chocolate mousses do take a while to set properly. Just make sure that you do chill it for several hours. Someone is asking Chef Philippe here about the ingredients, and he's talking about the fact that the mousse doesn't contain butter, no rich egg yolk. It just really simply depends on the airy lightness and the flavor actually provided by the chocolate. So I hope you enjoy it. You will find the fully translated and edited version of the recipe in the link that I will provide in the description, so be sure to check that out. And also let me know through comments what you think about this video series idea, and then also anything about the recipe as you try it. If you've got additional questions you want to ask me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.